Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry for that slight delay. I'm so excited to be here with all of you today. My name is Umang, and I'm of the OTM team. And we're going to talk about the topic, which is bridging technology and tradition in the unique market that is India. So my favorite quote on India is Ruchir Sharma when he says, India is the one market that has consistently disappointed the optimists and the pessimists. So in many ways, I think of us like a big plane that's just about to take off, always on the verge of taking off, but there's something holding us back. So hopefully today we'll talk about some of that. We'll talk about what makes us great, what makes us unique, and what's likely to stay unique even as we grow richer and even as we develop. But I think travel is an exception to all of this. It's hard to be pessimistic about travel. You look at the halls here, they're so busy. You look at any stat, you look at outbound trips, domestic trips, number of passports issued. There's only one direction, it's going up and to the right. And let me just tell you what a great group of people we have here today. So let me invite my panelists on stage. Ankush from TBO. TBO has been a long-time partner and supporter of OTM, so thanks for that, Ankush. It's one of the largest B2B travel distribution platforms in the world. Amanpreet from Airbnb. Amanpreet has spent now a decade building Airbnb in India, bringing a truly global product to the Indian market, so I'm sure he'll have a lot of insights. Welcome to OTM, Aman. And Santosh from Booking.com. Booking.com is, of course, I'm sure all of you have used Booking.com at one point, and it's one of the largest platforms of its kind. Welcome, Santosh. And Neel from Skyscanner, which is making a lot of waves in India now. Neel has helped build some of the largest consumer apps in India, so I'm sure he'll have a lot to share with us on the topic. So with that, let's start. And let's start with you, Ankush. Okay, great. Okay, Ankush, so India has this vibrant and thriving ecosystem of travel agents and tour operators powered by B2B platforms like yours and ours. So I want to start with talking about how do you see this structure evolving and how do you see this compared with the West, and both from a sort of business standpoint and a consumer travel preference standpoint?
So, I've been serving the B2B for literally 24 years now. And I must say, I've seen such a big shift in the thinking of the travel agents and the operators that they're much evolved what they were 5 years back. They realize where they're losing their business. And some of them have mentally given up that space to my amazing colleagues on my right and left. Because I think point-to-point, simple itineraries is something which I think will shift towards OTAs. But I think the complex itineraries, when it comes to high touch point for the consumer, and there are many large companies in Mumbai itself which are serving certain communities, which I don't think they will ever shift to an online platform. The good news is the way India is growing, so I think it's going to be a lot for everybody to take that. People realize that if you see these aircrafts being added, I always tell the world offline, online will always coexist. In my gut feeling, it will be 50-50 in probably 5 years from now. Currently, I think it's 85-15 when it comes to international, but it's almost 60 towards OTAs, 40 towards travel agencies when it comes to the domestic side of it. But the market is too large among, I think America has settled down this with that 50-50. There are great companies there, Expedia, the bookings, but the travel agents are still thriving there. I think the way India is going to bloom in the next 10 years, there is no reason that the offline, online will not shift, but the only thing is it gets tough for us as a company because now we need to keep building that inventory, the content, to fight the big boys here, to ensure that the B2B ecosystem is well secured to compete, with the online space. And I've been hearing amazing things from people in the last 6 hours since I've been here. The expectations are more and more for us, so that also keeps us going. And knowing TBO, we will ensure we, build the right tech as we move forward. And AI is something I know you'll bring it up, which we will bring it in the next question.
Yeah. Do any of you want to come in there? So, Santosh, let's go to you. Tell us how do you see this structure and what has your experience been sort of running booking in India, and how does it compare with other markets that you're in?
Firstly, I have to say congratulations to the OTM team. I just did a quick walkthrough of the hall next door, and I have to say it was packed.
Yeah.
So it's great to see, and I think for all of us in the travel industry, this is great, right? Because we see all this news around the geopolitical crises, we see consumer spending down in certain areas and whatnot, but doesn't look like travel demand has gone down in any way, right? So which is great to see. I think in terms of answering your question, I would say, look, three things in terms of how I think we've differentiated ourselves in the Indian market. And when you're in 200 countries, it becomes very difficult to localize your product, right? But we try. Because of course, given the opportunity size in India, it's a market that you cannot ignore. And I think I would say three things. One, from a business model perspective, Booking.com primarily started out doing the agency model, which is, in other words, it's sort of the post-paid, pay-at-hotel model, right? We were the one OTA which started predominantly on the agency side, whereas all the other OTAs, the big OTAs in the world, started more on the merchant model side, which is the prepaid bookings. And for us, the agency model has been fantastic in terms of achieving a tremendous amount of scale and growth. And I think also, in a very large way, it goes very nicely with the Indian consumer psyche, in terms of paying at the hotel. Also, cash being such a large component of how Indians trade and transact today, it fits very well with that mindset. The other thing is, a lot of countries that we travel to, we still need visas, right? And a lot of visas require bookings. And so therefore, again, having the agency model works very, very well. And so that aided a lot of our initial growth, I would say, in the market. The other thing from a model perspective is our pricing and our user interface. The user interface is one which is extremely simple, easy to use. It's not very cluttered. And that's the design principles that we have had from day one. And that's worked very well for us. The other thing is on the pricing. It's very transparent pricing, right? Page one on the search listing, it's what you see is what you get. There are no magical convenience charges or all kinds of things being added on in the last page of the booking, right? So that's from a model perspective. Then from a product perspective, there are multiple things that we've added to kind of, again, cater to the Indian consumer's mindset, right? A couple of examples I will take is, one in terms of value adds, which is what I mean by that is today more and more Indian travelers, they want value, right? Indian travelers can be demanding, but at the same time, when they see value, they're prepared to pay more for an experience. So what we have done is we've started adding things beyond just hotel rooms, right? Just like how you have auxiliary services in airlines, you've got auxiliary services also for hotel rooms. So things like F&B, spas, and whatnot, experiences being added on to that hotel room. And that's helped us upsell and cross-sell to a very large extent. And it's benefited partners directly, right, as a result of that. And then the third thing I would say is from a marketing perspective, we've tried to do things like, for example, the cricket. We've had a sponsorship deal with the ICC for about 5 years, which we sponsored all the ICC events. Of course, you can't ignore cricket in India. It was a great way for us to build our brand awareness, and hopefully it's things like that which we will continue to do from a marketing standpoint in the future.
So Amanpreet, why don't you chime in and tell us, you've brought a sort of very global product and a global new concept to India. So tell us about that journey and how was it building Airbnb in India?
Sure. So I think I'll start by, first of all, congratulations, great event, great to see all the enthusiasm. I'll go kind of zoom out a little bit and say, so hospitality has always been intrinsic to the Indian culture. I think the other thing that's intrinsic to Indian culture is entrepreneurship. So you bring these two together and you create a platform that brings a micro-entrepreneurial opportunity for people to monetize their existing assets, their homes in our case. And kind of provide authentic, immersive experience for people who are genuinely looking for that now. And I think when you bring these two together and a technology platform that kind of enables that, that's Airbnb. Mm-hmm. And so it fit very well in terms of an offering from an India audience perspective. I think what we've also seen is largely India is a very young country, right? And if you look at the number of millennials in India, more than 500 million plus millennials, and travel increasingly is now led by millennials and Gen Z. In fact, 9 out of the 10 first-time bookers that are coming onto our platform are either millennials or Gen Z. Mm-hmm. And they value experiential travel more than anything else. And I think we've heard this in multiple conversations before as well. So more people are looking for experiential travel. More people are looking to experience new locations, new places, and they want to immerse in that local culture. I think people are kind of moving away from cookie cutter experiences and saying that I want to do something new. And I think that's where a platform like Airbnb comes into the play in terms of the unique diversity of listings, the unique diversity of hosts, the unique diversity of places that are on the platform. So that's lent very well in terms of our growth here. Like any other global platform, we are also in like 220 plus countries. But our product and service gets consumed at a very local level, right? It's the homes, the hosts, the neighborhoods that make the magical experience when people kind of book an Airbnb. So we've also looked at all aspects to localize the product wherever necessary. If people like to pay with local payment methods, you kind of bring those on. So I think that's table stakes for any global company to perform or kind of play in India. The real value is, can we become the culture, even a part of the cultural conversation? Can we be part of the cultural zeitgeist? And, Santosh talked about cricket. You can't keep Bollywood away. And a large portion of, travelers want unique access now. Like nobody would have ever imagined to go and stay in a cine star's home. And that's been made possible because of Airbnb. So I think we'll continue to partner with iconic people, iconic places, and create access in terms of creating new experiences for people because that's what people are looking for. In fact, we looked at some search trends, right? There has been a 20% increase globally in terms of people looking for immersive experiential travel. And so inventory like tree houses, mud houses, igloos, all of this are finding favor. And people are creating these experiences for people to see. So I think the future looks good. We've heard about some of the challenges from a travel perspective, but I believe existing people have started to travel more. And a lot of that has happened after COVID because flexibility is something that is now available to a lot of people. So existing people are traveling more and new people are coming onto the bandwagon to travel. And given the economic growth, optimism, and the potential that India has, more people will spend on disposable activities and travel would be on top of it. So very optimistic about where we are going. And we want to be the platform of choice when it comes to experiential travel.
Okay, Neel, so you're relatively new to travel, but so what insights are you bringing over from your over decade of experience building consumer apps, and how do you see the Indian travel market evolving?
Firstly, since we're talking about cricket, fun fact for the audience, Santosh is a state-level cricketer.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, just as a fun fact. But yeah, I think before Skyscanner, for the last 10 or 12 years, I've been part of two build stories in India, which is Zomato and Google Pay. They're both very, very different organizations, both culturally and in terms of scale. And obviously, Zomato was a true blue startup. Google Pay still had the brand and the deep pockets. I think the two or three things which I'm trying to get in, because it's early days for me in travel, is I think in Zomato what we learned was there's a lot of value in authenticity and empowerment, right? So any function, whether it was social media or tech or product, we had a leadership system where you could just take calls and make mistakes, right? There were not 3 or 4 different levels of approval, and it was like, as long as you're prioritizing the customer first, feel free to make mistakes, learn from them, and then get it right next. So even if you look at, let's say, Zomato social media today, and it's not a startup anymore, it's still very raw, it's very filterless, it's very real. And I think Dipinder recently said it's something, it strikes a relationship with the customer, right? It feels like you're talking to a real person. So I think things like that, especially in travel, which is so emotional, so personal, you kind of want to bring in authenticity at every level and not make it feel like a bunch of like just corporate processes. Google Pay, again, very, very different, but much more long-term thinking, much more strategic thinking. But I think the one thing which I really appreciated in my time while we were building it out, right from like when it was a small app called Taze, was while they think really long-term for the next 3 or 5 years, they're always looking at what's happening in the market and trying to respond to that, even if it's not part of their plan. So for example, like I'm sure all of you at some point have used the scratch card on Google Pay, right? Where you used to get those cashbacks and like 80 rupees and 30. I never got more than 5 rupees, so I still crib about it to my old team. But at one point we realized that there are 10 million people who are going on those scratch card channels, and they're scratching it twice a day. So it was a cost center where we were using it for user acquisition. But then overnight, we're like, why are we spending money on something where there's so many people coming in? So then we made it more like a branded property for consumer brands. So I feel even in travel, if anything, is much more dynamic than any other place I've ever been to. Every week, things change. So I feel like constantly, like you might have a plan, you might have a strategy, but still responding to what you see in the market is probably going to be a key part of my learning curve here.
Talking about change, I can't not talk about AI. I remember I was in the audience, Ankush, in 2018, and somebody asked you, what is the most underrated, what's most underrated in travel tech? And you said AI. And I was like, is it really underrated? But now I see the point. So in some sense, travel search is still stuck in a sort of an old paradigm, right? And with AI, I mean, travel is the classic use case. When we talk about agents, the first thing that comes to my mind is, can I get somebody to book my flights? Can I just have a conversation and can an AI do that for me? So how do you see that evolving within your organizations? And just even crystal ball gazing, is travel search going to look the same 5 years from now or 10 years from now? That question's for all of you. So go first, Neel. Yeah.
I'm happy to take it. Look, I think from our perspective, AI is not new. Firstly, I have to set that perspective, right? Because we've used AI for roughly about 15 years or so now in our business. It's been used primarily on the the partner side, for example, to manage a lot of listings. Today, we have 29 million listings on the platform. It's impossible to have an army of people monitoring and managing these number of listings, right? So AI has been used to a large extent in managing listings, especially when it comes to the digital segment. It's also been used for content moderation, because today we are bidding on millions of keywords on Google, right? And when you're looking at how do you optimally spend on each auction for a keyword, AI is a very big part of that, right? It's also been used to curb fraud, to a very large extent on the platform. Because when you're a marketplace, inevitably, you will see some level of fraud. And AI has been extremely useful in that regard. Now it's come onto the consumer side. And, you talked about AI. What a great week to be talking about AI, right? Yeah. If you've been following the news with DeepSeek, unbelievable, right? What's happening. And I think it's a tremendous forebearer of what we can expect, I think, in the future, especially from a large language model and looking at machine learning. But I think the possibilities are endless from a consumer perspective, because now in the last couple of years, ever since OpenAI came in, it's come on the consumer side, right? Where everybody now, any layman knows about AI and wants to use AI when they're searching. What we've started to do as a company is we've started to use it even in our day-to-day activities. Like, for example, I use it every day to search for information, to search for documentation, and it's made my life a lot easier, right? We have something called as the AI Trip Planner, which we've launched. It's a conversational chatbot. It's now live in about 4 countries globally, where you can essentially perform the same transaction that you would on the website or the app, but through the AI conversational chatbot. And it's a very seamless transition between both interfaces. So, but it's still very early days, yeah. Umang, right? And that's what I'm very excited about.
Yeah.
I can go next, right? So, very much like Santosh explained. So, AI is new from a consumer buzzword perspective, but from an Airbnb perspective also, we've been using AI for a very long time, whether it's machine learning, large language models. And for us, the focus has been more in terms of internal efficiencies. So we've been using this to create more customer support effectiveness, for example. At any point of time, there could be 1,000 scenarios in terms of why people would want to contact an Airbnb customer support. And then there could be policies, etc. So how can we empower our agents with these tools that use AI so that the resolution is very, very quick? Santosh talked about listings. We have millions of listings on our platform as well. And with millions of listings comes millions of photos, right? And we use AI to sort photos, to identify photographs in terms of, and arranging them, whether it's a living room, it's an outside facade, it's a bathroom or a kitchen. So doing this with technology has made it far more efficient. And we will continue to deploy the technology to bring more internal effectiveness. That's a given. But we also believe that, as a travel company, we are very well suited to use AI in the end to achieve the single biggest objective of travel, which is connection. Enabling people to connect with each other. So imagine a scenario where two people who talk different languages would be able to communicate with each other because there is an AI-built technology within the app. And I think that's what you're seeing come into play. I think if you were to look at AI and look at consumer behavior, how many things have changed in the last 2 years per se? If you were to open up your phone and then kind of see how you shop, more or less the same way in the last 2 years. How you maybe call a cab or use a cab service, maybe the same. So we tend to, overestimate technology in the short term, but underestimate it in the long term. But I think it is definitely something that we are very, very bullish about, thinking about how it can create better human connection. Because at the end of the day, the magic is always in the people connecting with each other.
So I think, Umang, you're right. In 2018, it was underrated, but I think now it's time. It's reality, right? And one has to, if you don't adopt AI, I think one company will be redundant in the next few years. So as being a B2B for us, the amount of, so end of the day, what are we doing? B2B to C, right? So I have so much data of our consumers via the travel operators that today through AI is what we're trying to see and make some intelligent moves when it comes to negotiating with supply, to getting the right inventory, content creation, as Santosh said. So that makes our agents more powerful, when they are actually facing the customer. So that's the one side of it. The second is obviously chatbots and etc., which will come in the call center, because at the end of the day, I think by saving cost, creating operating leverages will happen via the AI. So that's something which TBO we are doing. And I think OpenAI, ChatGPT, etc., today are currently going to be the itinerary planner. But the question is, how do you fulfill that planning, right? Now, does TBO create something like a ChatGPT, enables a travel agent, and then get the itinerary coming back to TBO? So is that what we are trying to do? So our AI motivation and objective is a little different than probably what our other two friends have here. So that's, I think, what will evolve in the B2B space. So definitely it's a key focus area for us now. And I'm sure we will do something which is commendable. And there are great companies today in India and overseas, which are looking at this. And I'm sure some of them will become rock stars when it comes to AI. Some might be names who are not even here today. They might be here in 3 years on the dais, and we might not be here. It can happen if you don't do the right job at AI.
No, I completely agree. And I think just to zoom out and set some context, so when Skyscanner started, it started as a spreadsheet in someone's office in Edinburgh in 2003, right? And the idea was to just list a portal for prices on that spreadsheet. The idea was, the focal point then was basically convenience and just cost. Fast forward like 2 decades, it's the largest platform for airline traffic globally. India's our second largest market. We process 80 billion prices a day. But having said that, the core value and the focus is still the same, which is convenience and cost, so to speak. And I feel like sometimes we overdo the AI thing. When we have conversations as to like, should we be an AI first company? I'm like, look, in every decision, it'll always be the traveler first. Are we making it a more seamless experience? Are we making it more unbiased? Is AI helping in that? I think that's the big question to solve for. For us, there have been 1 or 2 like very strong use cases, like because there is so much information and so many billions of data points, we realized through like our machine learning algorithms that are such simple things, like our customers use 89% of their actions are basically 3 actions which we now got on our homepage, right? And that's again, like AI has helped us get there. But again, putting the traveler first. We have something called Savvy Search, where you can kind of have a conversation and say that, oh, can I see the most picturesque cricket matches in India or the cricket grounds in India? And they'll say, okay, like these are the flight options to Dharamshala, to Calcutta or wherever else. So we're trying to like slowly get it into our system, but it's not the North Star. It's like, okay, if it helps the traveler, let's go deeper and let's really make a cleaner experience out of it.
there's no mainstream use case yet. Okay, interesting. So at the risk of sounding a bit gloomy, I want to also talk about challenges. So, what is holding us back? And of course, inbound travel, that is, foreign travelers coming to India, continues to have a rather sort of muted story. So I want to hear from all of you, if you could share any, any insights on what we could do better. Of course, infrastructure is well known. But beyond that, do you see us doing better in any way and sort of that story taking off? And us realizing our true potential.
The positive angle, before I come to the challenge, is among what Emirates created for Dubai as a destination, coming in, coming out, right? Irrespective of connecting the world. I think Air India and Indigo can do that for us, now making India as a hub when you're going to east or to west via Delhi, Mumbai, or whatever. So that's a good advantage. That airlift is going to be the highest ever in the next few years, plus the ease of visa online when you're coming to India. I think the only thing I'll say, challenge, infrastructure, everything everybody will say, I think is the media management. One small part of something goes wrong in India, it kind of comes up as if, the whole of India is under fire. I think that's where it affects our inbound. And it's not that bad things or ugly things don't happen in New York or in Paris, etc. It's a big city, at least Delhi and Bombay. There will be things which will be going wrong, but I think the media needs to control the negatives, And I think one thing is pollution. Now, this is something which I met somebody a month back. Today, when you see 42 cities in India, out of 50, 42 cities are the most polluted are in India. Now, look at a foreigner sitting in Spain whose AQI is 6, and I have 600 in Delhi or 300 in Bombay. He's never going to come to India. So as citizens today, forget tourism guys, right? As citizens today, I think, one, it affects our own health, and definitely is affecting tourism into India. Because anybody seeing the press, seeing 42 cities, I think it's something which we really need to work around.
And we actually last year we put out a report on how India travels. This is an annual report that we do, and last year we focused on the inbound segment. Because you're right, I think if you look at domestic, outbound, and inbound, obviously inbound is the one which is sort of lagged behind, you can say, right? At least compared to 2019 numbers, which is still in many ways the North Star, right? If you're looking at growth. And I think what we found, there were a couple of interesting things, and Ankush, of course, very rightly put it, there is a perception issue, which kind of goes back to the whole marketing part of it, right? Because when we look at how can we market India in a better way, is there an opportunity? Sometimes I feel almost the less is more approach might be better, because we have everything in this country, but are we getting lost sometimes in trying to promote multiple different messages? And can we have one single storyline for India that is appealing to a foreign traveler coming in, right? The other thing is what we discovered is that, obviously source markets are shifting compared to pre-COVID to now. And what do we need to, cater to the demands of the new traveler who's looking at Asia as a destination, right? Vis-a-vis some of our so-called competitor markets, how can we stand out in a better way? Like addressing the safety issues, addressing the concerns that people had around falling sick when they were in the country. What are we doing both at a central level and at a state level to come together to address some of those topics? Public-private partnerships, I think, can be done, a lot better in terms of addressing a lot of those issues that are happening. And I think also the beauty of our infrastructure build-out is that we now have those connections, right? Whether it is to Central Asia, to Europe, to the Middle East, to Southeast Asia, our carriers are going everywhere. And a mind-boggling statistic that I just saw a couple of days ago is there were 4.5 million Indians who visited Southeast Asia in the last 1 year alone, but we were only able to get about 700,000 of those tourists to come to visit India. So, I'm half joking when I say this, but a lot of those planes that are going out of India, it's the same Indians coming back, right? So what can we do to get some of those travelers in? That's what we should be aiming for, because we have the routes, we have the connectivity.
I think we've heard the challenges even in the previous panel some of the issues around perception, some of the issues around connections. We all know that, right?
Yeah.
I do believe it's time to kind of put together an action plan. And I think it is not a single, stakeholder's responsibility. It's collective responsibility. We as travel industry players, the government, definitely from an infrastructure perspective, and I think society as a large from a civic sense perspective, right? And so I do believe that there is a lot that our beautiful country has to offer, and we all know the rich diversity, cultural heritage. We should also play, on our strengths, and work public, private, even within private. Maybe there is an opportunity for agencies to come together to kind of tackle these challenges. If it's perception, for example, we signed an MOU with the Central Tourism Ministry, Incredible India, primarily highlighting heritage, hosts in India, for example. We've talked about heritage destinations, but what we said, there are people in these heritage cities that are providing amazing hospitality, and that needs to be showcased to the world. And so I do believe that in the end, the onus is going to be collective responsibility across government stakeholders, private players coming together across the entire domain, because there is a massive opportunity at play here. And I think we have solved for some of the infrastructure issues. I think we need to solve for some of the others now.
Honestly, I think the main solutions have been kind of articulated out. But just sharing an incident which happened this morning, right? So I was on a flight to Bombay at 10 a.m. And I started talking to the couple next to me. They're an Austrian couple who are visiting India. And they're telling me about where they're visiting. So they're going to Hampi, they're going to Thiruvananthapuram, they're going to Mahabalipuram, they're going to Amritsar, and obviously doing the big cities. And for a second, I just had a sense of guilt that I haven't gone to half the places they said they're going in this trip, right? And I feel like the onus, yes, obviously public-private partnership, and obviously like it's on us as an ecosystem, but I think it starts from home, right? So instead of me thinking about where my next 3 foreign visits are, there is enough connectivity, to Santosh's point. Like, the government has 160 airports right now. That's going to become 210 in the next 5 years. But I think the onus is on us to kind of do that, and then kind of expect like media management and all the other things to follow. So at least for me, my personal expectation is I need to see our country more, and then become a stronger ambassador of like promoting it. One silver lining though is we do have these travel trend reports every year, and there's been obviously a massive surge in outbound travel.
Yeah.
But the number one most city with the maximum amount of growth was one in India, which was actually Shillong. So Shillong saw 838% year-on-year growth. And I've been there to Umayam Lake, and I can only imagine that if each one of you go there, it's something else. So there is a silver lining. We just have to find those pearls and then like channelize our energies towards it. But it's a collective responsibility and starts at home.
Sure. Okay, my last question. So in one line, there's a bunch of entrepreneurs and would-be entrepreneurs in the room. In one line, what is one space in travel that you think they should be building in and that's not well served yet? Let's start with you, Amanpreet. Yeah.
I think I've said it. Travel is increasingly, millennial-led. They love experiential travel. There is an opportunity to kind of showcase a diversity of experiences across various domains. I think build for that, and you're building for the future.
I think cracking a solution for the niche travel, one, and I think AI. I think it's very early in the game at the moment. I think it's a great opportunity for startups to do that. If you're trying to build the same thing what we have done, you're wasting time.
Sure.
I think on a lighter note, my advice to an entrepreneur is don't take advice from someone who's not an entrepreneur. I feel like you've already taken the hard decision of taking the risk and getting into the business. But I think like, on a serious note, the one thing I would say is like, don't make better Me Too models of what's already there. The person who really matters is the traveler. Like, how do you really elevate the traveler experience? I feel that's the one-line problem statement in whatever you do. It could be with AI, it could be with spiritual tourism, it could be with experiential tourism, but how do you reinvent the way the traveler thinks about their day-to-day? I feel that's the problem statement for any entrepreneur to solve.
All the cool ideas are already taken. Look, I think I would say probably event tourism, right, is one opportunity that I see in India which can be improved in a very big way. Again, the customer experience, right, the fan experience, the end-to-end experience. I have to say that some of the platforms involved, there needs to be a better platform.
Okay, time's up, but we'll take one question from the audience if anyone wants. Do we have anyone with a question? So, mic to the lady, please. Please introduce yourself and...
Hi, I'm Trisha Aswani, Global PR Head at Rail Europe. So my question is, because I've been hearing all of you speak about AI, and of course, AI is something that everyone is now wondering what the future of different industries is going to be like. So my question is, AI is transforming travel, of course, but at its core, travel is still about human experiences. So how do we sort of ensure that AI enhances personalization?
So, good question. I can try to take a crack at it. Look, I'll give you maybe a couple of examples, right, in terms of how we are approaching it. Because you're right that AI in any way should augment the experience that a traveler is having, not take away from it, right? And what we are trying to do is, for instance, when we look at, let's say, pet travel, right, as one example. So today it's an underserved part of travel, traveling with pets. And what we have found is a lot of times where travelers are trying to find answers to questions from properties, we've seen that AI can be used in a very intelligent way, where let's say you're traveling somewhere, you have a dog, which is, let's say, a large-sized dog, and you ask a question to the chatbot saying, look, I have an Alsatian, with the property be able to accommodate it. What the AI would do is parse all the responses that have come back previously from the property in this regard, and it might say yes straight away, that this question was asked previously, and you have no concerns, you can take your dog here. Or it might say, no, I did not find the answer to this specific question, but the property has said they can accommodate dog breeds of similar sizes, XYZ. Right? So it's giving a very specific response to a specific question, which otherwise the traveler might have had to hunt and try to find somebody in the property and get that answer from. So it's specific use cases like this that it's being used for at the moment, where it's really improving that experience, that discovery experience, and also the booking experience that the traveler is having.
Anyone else wants to chime in? Okay. All right, great. Yes, we'll take a quick picture.